Ready? All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Before I get going, just so I do not forget, when you do come up and present either the application or talk at the public hearing, if you could use the microphone over to my left, just makes Fred's job easier. So, and if you could just speak, clearly, slowly, that kind of stuff. First, we have to review the minutes from the May 17th, 2017 meeting. I reviewed them. I didn't have any corrections, changes, concerns, but do any of the other board members have any issues? Okay, let's hear them. Okay.
It's not just clarity.
Is it,
On page 2, there's a paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph down starts with motion,
right?
and the second after the comma is just some garbled words like
Okay,
that. And then the rest are really just very minor.
all right. Subject to minor corrections, changes, whatever,
Yeah.
revisions. Richard, do you have any?
No, I don't.
Okay. David?
I was absent.
You were
I'm
absent?
abstaining anyway.
Okay.
I move we adopt them with the minor changes that Timothy
Right.
suggested.
John and/or Kim, have you guys had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes?
No changes.
No issues, changes, anything like
I
that?
had already submitted some changes to Chris that she incorporated already.
Okay, great. All right, so Richard, you made the motion. I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, carried. All right, the first order of business, new business, is the Stephen Myron Hall Foundation. And is there anybody here for that? Yes. All right. Come on up. What we're doing at this point in time is we simply want to go through the application, make sure it's complete. If it's complete, we'll accept it this evening and put it on for a public hearing next time around, next month. All right, so anyway, if you could just state your name and let us know what you want to do.
Sure. I'm Zachary Mintz. I'm from Zarin and Steinmetz. I'm here on behalf of the Stephen Hall Foundation. I'm here with Marcus Carter from Stephen Hall Architects. There's one thing that I wanted to clarify, at least to begin on the agenda. We met with the planning board on Monday, and I believe you all may have seen the email that went out from Art Broad. Art informed us that we would not need to go forward with site plan and special permit applications for this proposed expansion of the single-family dwelling. I wanted to make sure that that was clear because, as it turns out, then we will only be applying for one variance rather than two. I know that the application that we put forward has both variances listed in it. Obviously, we would only need the one at this point. So I'm happy to provide more background about the project itself if you'd like at this point, or if that's unnecessary, I'm happy to defer.
No, we like to just get an idea of what you want to do, what it's going to look like, and those kind of things. And we know what your application is for, but just kind of go over it to fill in the paper.
Sure. So the application's on 60 Round Lake Road. Currently, there is a single-family dwelling on the property. That dwelling was built in 1940 before setback requirements were put into the code. So the house itself now is a pre-existing non-conforming use because it is into the front yard setback. The goal of this application is to expand that dwelling essentially, but most of the expansion would be into the setback. The expansion would be for what is going to be a library and workspace, essentially. The library would have books and architectural models, things like that, in it that would be used by fellows that would reside in this single-family house for 1 month a year. That month would be July. There would be 5 fellows living in the house. They are going to be selected by Stephen Hall. Stephen is the owner of the property and the managing member of the foundation. The fellowship is for architecture students who would be able to then use the adjoining library space to research and work on projects that they're pursuing. The fellowship would be competitive, and Stephen himself is a fellow for the AIA and is a professor at Columbia University Architecture, and this is in pursuit of education for architecture. So as far as the expansion itself, it would be temperature controlled, humidity controlled. There'd be no kitchen, no bath, no plumbing. It would not actually be for living space. It would really just be for workspace and for educational space.
Okay, and I see that you submitted, and I was going to ask you, but I see you submitted it already, some photographs of the site and the general area where the expansion is going to be.
That's correct. I think the photos you were looking at show kind of what we project as kind of the worst-case scenario for what you'd be looking at from the street. That's from Round Lake Road as you'd be approaching from the north going south on Round Lake Road. It's worth pointing out that the elevation changes pretty dramatically once you enter the property. It goes about 10 feet up, so you wouldn't really see much of what's being built on the property. The roof of the proposed library would have a green rooftop, and that would blend in. I think in the photos you have there, you may not even be able to distinguish where the roof is from the background, but the roof itself would be a green roof. And it's designed to match the existing building as much as possible.
Do you have any renderings of the addition, of what it will look like?
So this may be where it's worth turning it over to Marcus to
Okay.
have him explain a little bit more about the architecture of the building, because
Okay. Yeah, I see the photographs, and that's very helpful, and then at some point in time, maybe when we go and do the site visit, maybe to have it a little staked out a little bit so we have an idea of, where the addition's going to be, but a rendering of what the thing's going to look like is always nice, too.
Okay. Marcus Carter, I'm a senior associate at Stephen Hall Architects. In your packet, there are two views in the back. So the upper view is taken from Round Lake Road. And what you can see in this view is you can see the existing house through the trees on the left, the white area. And then to the right would be the visible face of the addition facing towards the road. We intend to paint the face looking towards the road to match the existing house. As Zach noted, from the center of the road up to the plateau where the existing house is about 10-foot grade change. And we intend to preserve all the existing large trees that are on the site as well. So we imagine from the street this is going to be fairly well screened from a visibility standpoint. The lower image shows the existing house on the left, and on the right you see the frontmost face of the addition, which, as I said, will be painted to match the existing house. And the proposed addition essentially kind of zigzags to avoid existing trees and steps up in elevation to address the topography on the site.
And is there some kind of rendering of showing what it's actually going to look like? I see where it's going to be based upon the red rectangle that you have on the lower photograph, but do you have some kind of rendering?
That's the only rendering we have at this point, which is really the face that would be seen from the road and from the entry.
At some point in time, and I would like to see, we have to consider its, effect upon the neighborhood and that kind of stuff, so we always like to see what it's going to look like. So a rendering of what it's going to look like would be helpful for us to take a look at the application.
Is there a follow-up question?
Sure.
Sure.
I just wanted to point out a couple other things that we have but did not submit as part of this packet, and
Okay.
maybe we can expand upon them and get them to you at a follow-up.
Well, we can
meeting.
always accept subject to you providing that information too, so.
That'd be great. I just wanted to ask, in terms of future rendering, do you want what it would appear to be from on the property, off the property, both? I just want to make sure we can get you what you're
Both
looking
is
for.
great. Always like to
I
see.
think what Scott's asking about is just elevation, so that you can
Yeah.
profile shots of the side, so you can see what neighbors would see, in addition to what the view from the road is.
Understood.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, just what it's going to look like when it's done.
Sure.
Aiming at, looking ahead to the element of the test and impact on community character, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Certainly.
Yeah, that's why we ask. And you're probably wondering why we asked that, but that is one of the 5 tests that we have to utilize. Its effect on the neighborhood, adverse or positive or whatever, so.
Understood.
All right.
The packet that we,
There are elevations in the packet.
that's exactly what I was going to note. The packet does have elevations in there. I don't know if,
Does it have a rendering what it looks like?
it's not renderings, but
Okay.
hardline elevations.
Okay.
If you want something different than the elevation, Scott, then you can describe what it is that you're.
I just want to see, have something either, sometimes people superimpose it on these photographs of, assuming you build the addition, what it's going to look like, kind of superimpose it there, so.
Those photographs do include the addition. Those are, so perhaps it's worth pointing, you can.
Yep.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can see from here, left of the red box is the existing house.
Right.
Within the red box is the view from the parking area that you would see
Right.
of the addition. So are you looking for other angles
I
than
just
this,
want to see
or-
what if I pull up here,
Yes.
what am I going to see when the addition is done?
what you see in the red box? You'll see a white elevation,
Okay?
and you see...
So this is what it's going to look like when it's
Yes,
done?
yes.
All right.
And you'll see as Zach noted, we're going to have a planted sedum roof. So that will merge with the trees surrounding
Okay.
the site.
So,
I mean, the topography actually drops off more as you go down Round Lake Road. So I think the elevations of the building from that side won't even be visible from the street. The other thing to note is this is really the primary visible elevation of the house. The existing house and the trees will screen the other elevations from the road.
yeah, they're actually, most of it's in the back of the house, it
Yes.
looks like.
Yes.
All right.
No question.
Questions, concerns, comments?
Well, just to build on some of the things that the representatives for the applicant already brought forth. I did speak on the phone this afternoon with Mike Trimble, the planning board chairman, about this and, about the opinion that was sent to the zoning enforcement officer from the planning board. Kim and I looked briefly into whether a home occupation application might be appropriate for this. After discussing it with Michael, we're ready to concur with the planning board and have the applicant just proceed on the variance. The other thing I wanted to just say, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, that even if that hadn't happened, it would have been our recommendation to the board tonight that the lot area variance would not have been required for this, because in our opinion, this is a pre-existing lot, and a variance wouldn't have been required. It was the zoning enforcement officer that that brought up the idea that that would be required in this case. But we think that the only thing that needs approval from this board is the setback variance.
Okay.
And the only other thing I want to say is that we would compliment the applicant. It's a very nice application.
Yes.
There's a lot of
Very
helpful
thorough.
information in here.
All right, we can discuss that later. I tend to agree
Yeah,
with you.
that is going to come up in more detail in the next two applications.
Okay. Questions, concerns? Okay, at this time, I'd make a motion to accept the application. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Chris, can we set it down for a public hearing at the next meeting, which is July 19th? Is that a good time for you guys to come back? And
Yes.
The process is, I'm sure you've probably been through it before, is neighbors will be notified, and interested parties, and they'll have an opportunity to speak if they want to, and you will present as you presented this evening, explaining the application and answering whatever questions, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So
Right.
there's a little bit more business for this application, Scott. You can classify this action as a type 2 action under seeker this evening pursuant to section 617.5C13. And with regard to referrals, there's no referral required to the Dutchess County Planning Department because this is a area variance for residential use. We do have to refer to the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, and no referrals are required to the WAC or the CAB.
Okay. So it's 13? Or
617.5C13.
would 12 also apply? Granting individual
Yes,
setback and lot
yeah,
line
yeah.
variances? So we throw both in?
Sure.
All right.
We did that for later
Okay.
ones.
So if we can make it Would you like a motion to that effect?
Yes, please.
All right. At this time, I'd make a motion to classify this application as a Type 2 application under Section 617, 5C12, and 617, 5C 13.
Second that.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So again, the only referrals are Planning Board and...
Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, that's it.
Okay. Great. Thank you. We'll
Thank
see you on
you.
the 19th.
Thank you.
All right, the next application is Gonzalez. Is anyone here for the Gonzalez application? No? All right, should we, I guess we'll just table it for the next meeting, since there's no one here on it? Does that sound right, John?
If you want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe, Chris, maybe you can contact the applicant and say that he was on for tonight, or he or she was on for tonight, and we put it over for the 19th, if they want it to be considered, and then we'll see what happens there. Okay, and next is the Ackert Hook Road application. Is there anyone here for that? Mr. Graminski?
Good evening, Mark Graminski, representing WTR Rhinebeck LLC for area variance applications for 3 parcels that are located, that have access to Ackert Hook Road. Those parcels were previously created by subdivision approved by the town of Rhinebeck in
Thank you.
around 2007. At the time that these lots were created and approved by the planning board, the zoning for this this section of the parcel that was subdivided was 1 acre zone. Adoption of the new zoning ordinance in 2009, 2010 by the town of Rhinebeck changed this zoning to 5 acre zone. So therefore, there's several setbacks in the bulk regulations that can't be met for these particular lots that were created. Once again, access is Ackert Hook Road, located here on the bottom of the map, located to the south. Access for these parcels was approved by common driveway. So there's a common driveway here that's actually been constructed. It was required to be built as part of the subdivision approval in 2007. So there's a common driveway located on the east side, and then there's, starting from Ackert Hook Road, here's lot number 8. Lot number 7 is in back. It's a flag lot in the back. And lot number 6 actually has frontage on Route 9. Access will be from the common driveway, but the frontage is on Route 9. And on the plan that I submitted to this board for consideration, this shows not only the common driveway, but access by the individual driveway to those parcels. And I showed specific footprints for each one of those parcels. So WTR has already planned the type of house that they want to put on those parcels, and so it's represented by the footprints on this plan. I've shown the associated setbacks to those footprints, and for each of the lots, I detailed what area variances could be considered by this board. And I don't know if you want me to go through them all, but they're listed for each one of the lots.
Yeah, just generally what you need.
It's generally front yard and side yard setbacks. So I'll start with lot number 6. I need a side yard.
So, Mark, let me just interrupt now, just to save us all some time,
Right.
okay?
Are they really needed, I guess is...
Yeah, well, so we took a look at this.
Okay.
After this application came in, and according to the zoning enforcement officer, let me, please pass these down, Dave, if you would. I'm handing out to you a copy of section 12522 of the Rhinebeck zoning law, which is existing lots of record. So, as Mark explained to you, these lots were created in 2007 pursuant to an approved subdivision. That was prior to the time that Rhinebeck changed its zoning law in 2009. The zoning enforcement officer is requiring in his denial letter that in addition to the setback variances that I'm going to let Mark describe for you, he's also saying that this applicant's required to get variances from this board, 3 variances each for each lot for minimum lot width, minimum lot frontage, and a minimum lot area. It's our opinion, Grant and Lyons, that these are valid pre-existing lots that existed before the zoning law was changed in 2009. In our opinion, this applicant should not be required to get the variances for minimum lot width, minimum lot frontage, and minimum lot area with regard to either of the, with regard to any of these 3 lots. So I think that my recommendation is that when you issue your final decision on this, that we will provide an argument to you for insertion into the resolution that no, it's the determination of this board. As you know, you can step into the shoes of the zoning enforcement officer, and that you've determined as a board that these variances are not required. And the basis for that decision is this existing lots of record section. If you take a look at that, I think I'm quite confident that you're going to agree with our opinion on that. So,
Mark, with that, I guess
moving
just
forward,
limit it.
We'll just treat this as a setback variance application.
Well, there's one other thing, John, is for lot number 7, we're over the coverage because the common driveway resides on lot 7, so we're just over for maximum lot coverage for that parcel.
Well-
I think the coverage was going to be included, if it was just the width, the frontage, and the area that's included in the existing
Right.
lot.
Right, so then we, area variance is required for
Yes,
coverage?
yes, for
Okay.
setbacks and for coverage
Okay.
on that lot.
It's only on lot number 7 because the
Okay.
common driveway resides on that lot.
Quick question, John and Mark. So I haven't read this yet, but are you essentially saying those are grandfathered issues because when the subdivision approval was granted, that all the setbacks and house placements were in on the
Lot sizes and
sketch?
frontage and all that were complied with at the time that the approval was granted.
Right, and locations of house and septics and all of that as well, though?
Yes.
That's correct. It was approved by the health department and actually, so we have, and they've been extended because it was
Right.
from 2007. And the house locations are in the same locations
Yeah, okay.
shown per the original approval. Needed to do that because of well and septic separations and grading.
Okay.
Okay, Mark.
So lot number 6 only requires a side yard area variance. It's 36 feet, required is 50 feet. Lot number 7 requires a front yard setback, which is here because of its location. It's 62 feet, which is less than 100. Also, as we discussed earlier, it's a maximum lot coverage. It's 22% because the common driveway resides on that lot, and 20 is allowed. And then for lot number 8, it would require a front yard setback of 34 feet. 100 is required, and a side yard setback of 41 feet, 50 feet is required.
I have a question, John, just for purposes of as we proceed. In 2007, the footprint of the house was on the subdivision, and the setbacks, side yard, front yard were different. But were they in compliance in 2007 when the footprint of the house was on there?
Yes, they were.
So then why aren't those not grandfathered?
Yeah, I have the same question.
If you take a look at the section that we printed out regarding the existing lot of record, they're pretty specific. That is just the width, the lot, and the area.
So it doesn't include,
It doesn't include the setbacks
Okay.
that are grandfathered
yeah,
in.
because when I was looking at it over, I just made a note, grandfathered as to everything. That was my,
Well, wait.
but I defer to you guys.
Go ahead, you
and,
can read what the...
So, section 125.2, it reads that...
All right, Kim, you're reading from this
Yep.
sheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, go ahead.
It says, existing lots of record, building or structure may be erected as either a permitted use or special permitted use, as may be applicable on any existing lot of record which, as defined in Article 13, does not conform to the lot area, lot width, and/or lot frontage requirement. And then it goes on to say that, provided that all other bulk regulations are complied with. So the way that we read that, John and I read that, is that if there's an issue with setbacks, that still has to be brought up to today's zoning code.
Okay.
Respectfully, I don't understand it / disagree, because this applicant went to an architect, an engineer, had this all drawn up, presented it, before the town with the footprints of these three houses.
They were generic footprints at the time. In 2007, they were 30 by 50 rectangles that were shown. What's shown now
Stand corrected.
is more detailed.
Good, thank you.
Only because making application for area variance now, and so we had to be more detailed, more specific in the footprint design.
Let me, I want to make sure I'm clear that what's shown here, I know it's kind of a generic thing, but is that going to be the footprint?
Oh, that is. Each one is different.
Right.
And that is the footprint.
So whatever's going to be built is going to be in that generic.
The generic depiction was on the
2007.
Planning
Right.
Board approved map. This is an updated map, and it's slightly different than the...
It's slightly different, and
Okay.
the applicant intends on building these footprints.
You had me at slightly different, so I mean, if it's slightly different than 2007, I can understand it then.
It's on the second sheet.
Yeah,
of the packet.
okay.
I am satisfied, thank you.
Okay. Any other, okay.
Also, I note that lot number 6, which has the frontage on Route 9, across from that is, I also submitted an agricultural data statement with this application. The land across Route 9 is ag parcel. So that was the reason for submission of an ag data statement with the application.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions, concerns?
No?
All right, it looks pretty detailed to me. We know what you want, and anyway, with that, I'd make a motion to accept the application as submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, John, I saw from your notes that you were suggesting, which I think makes sense, a type 2 designation under C12 and C13, just like the last application.
That's correct.
Because for the same relief. So I would make a motion that the application be deemed a type 2 matter under seeker, and specifically referring to section 617 5C12 and 617 5C13. Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mark will have it on for the next meeting on the 19th. By then, you'll have a more we'll have a definitive answer on what variances need to be addressed here. I'll tell you, my inclination is the same as John's,
Okay.
but we'll deal with that with our council.
Okay.
Okay.
Or move on it now so that Mark doesn't have to deal with it.
I would, if you did decide now, I would modify the plan, because I do list the other variances, and so I would modify that plan, modify the plan.
I mean, I don't have a problem with doing that now, John, if you don't have a
I don't,
problem.
we're quite convinced that we're right.
Okay, so this is kind of unusual territory. I don't think we've really ever
No,
prepared these.
this is similar to what we did in Leary.
Right, but I'm saying it's new to us in the last 2 months, or 3 months,
Yes,
or
it is.
whatever.
Yes, it is.
Certainly new from the last 13 years that I've been here. So anyway, should we make a motion to amend the application? How do you want to
I don't
address
think
it?
you need to make a motion. This will be rolled into the resolution.
Okay.
You can direct Mark that those, we have an understanding amongst the board members that that's what our resolution of this issue is going to be. It's going to be wrapped up. There'll be a written resolution at the end of this process that'll, and that determination will be included as part of the.
Okay, so include it in the resolution, that's good.
So we're going with 5 variances?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yep.
because 7 has 3.
No, 2.
2.
2.
2, 1,
2 for lot 8, 2 for lot 7, and 1 for lot 6.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the only other business on this is with regard to referrals, Dutchess County Planning Department, referrals not required. It should be referred to the planning board. It is in the LWRP, so it should be referred to the Waterfront Advisory Committee, and no referral is required to the CAB.
Are we setting a public hearing for this at this meeting?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, we
that's
said
the
it.
other
this
thing.
public hearing will be set for the 19th, July 19th. Is that good for you?
Yes,
Can
it
you be
is.
here?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll be here.
And John, that is going to the Rhinebeck Planning Board?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Good?
We're good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Way to do it. I just crossed out the ones that we.
While we have a little break here, it was suggested, John, that we assign out the resolution, when we accept the application. Do you have any quarrel with doing that? Typically, we do it after, the public hearing and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but we're thinking about moving it up.
Yeah, no, not at all.
right.
It makes sense to move it up so that whoever's in charge of it can start filling the blanks in
As quickly as
straight
they can.
away.
So let me just backtrack then. Who would like to be on the Stephen Myron Hall Foundation application? Don't all
David,
volunteer at
Tim?
once.
I'll take it if David or Tim don't want it.
It's architecture, I was thinking. and-
Great idea.
And this one's,
I'm liking
I'm a
it.
little uncomfortable with similar terminology.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Okay, so Richard, you'll take
Yeah,
that?
Right.
and I thought this one was sort of land boundaries, so I would take this one. if
Okay,
that's-
that sounds great.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then next we have the Leary application, and John, we need to discuss that, what we're doing there.
Hang on one second, let me catch up with you.
Just to be clear with the Myron Hall, how many variances are we looking at? Because I know that the CEO.
I think just one.
And yeah, it's just going to be the front yard setback.
Yeah, just one.
We'll meet with you briefly, Chris, at the end of the meeting, because we've been kind of crossing off the ones on the agenda that aren't needed, and we'll just cross-check with you and.
All right, just as a recap, at the last meeting, when the applicant submitted his application, there was discussion as to whether he actually needed to have variances to build this garage structure. And John, I know that you and Kim have researched the issue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe you can just
refresh your
refresh our recollection and state what you came up with, and I know you just handed us a proposed resolution.
Yeah. So what I've handed to you is a proposed resolution for the board to consider. Essentially, what happened in this case is Mr. Leary wanted to put an attached garage on his home. He already had an existing detached garage on the property. He made an application to the zoning enforcement officer for a building permit, and his permit was denied. He was advised the basis for the denial by the zoning enforcement officer was that a variance would be required in order for him to have, according to the zoning enforcement officer, not more than 3 accessory structures, of which not more than 1 shall be a private garage, shall be permitted on an individual lot in a residential district, and a variance is required for the second garage. Grant and Lyons did some research on this to find out, and we find out whether we agreed with the zoning enforcement officer's determination. It turns out our review of the language of section 125-27A7 of the zoning law did not require a variance for this. A variance would have been required if there was a second detached garage, but not if the second garage is attached to the home. So it was our conclusion and recommendation to the board that Mr. Leary did not require a variance. This resolution just traces the procedural history of this and sets forth a determination by this board that based upon your review of this matter and an input from your lawyers, that you are determining, you're essentially overruling the zoning enforcement officer here, saying that a variance is not required, directing that the zoning enforcement officer issue a building permit for this application, and directing Chris to arrange for a refund of Mr. Leary's application fee. And that's basically the whole thing.
Questions, anyone?
No?
Yeah, from the get-go, I just didn't see that he needed a variance, and, but I did want to have some research to back it up, because it is a little unusual that, we find that way, but I think it's the right decision.
And actually, so we sent you a memo, if you
Right.
recall, setting forth the results of our research. We actually were contacted by Ron after the issuance of that memo, and he had an opportunity to pitch his argument to us again, but we were not persuaded. And we advised him of that.
Has Mr. Leary been advised about what's going on? Okay. I know he's not here, so I figured as
But
much.
there's a direction at the end of the resolution for Chris to provide a copy of the resolution, and Mr.
Good.
Leary, copy of the resolution to the zoning enforcement officer, as well as filing one in the clerk's office.
All right. And sending his money back. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
I'm just curious how often this happens, because it's first on my watch that we're essentially telling the CEO that we think is wrong. That I recall.
I will tell you, in my experience, which goes back to 2003, this, I think, may be the first time, maybe the second time, but it's unusual. But I will also say that in the past, we never had legal counsel to go over these things, so we just took the application at its face value and did not delve into whatever issues there were, because we didn't have counsel to help us do that. So now we have the luxury of doing that, and
And one of the nice things about the authority that's given to zoning boards of appeals under the state town law is that what the law actually says is that you can step into the shoes of the zoning enforcement officer and make any decision that you think he or she ought to have made under the same circumstances. So
Right.
we're taking advantage of that authority here and, we want to be fair as we can be to the folks that come before our board, so that, if you don't have to be here, you don't have to be here,
right.
both for their sake and ours.
Right, I totally agree with that. I just also want to make sure we're fair to the ZEO.
Well, he's been apprised of this. He's made his arguments to John. So I think he's had an opportunity to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a fundamental disagreement about what we perceive to be pretty clear language in the zoning law on this particular issue.
And he was unpersuaded.
Yeah, well, we're not trying to persuade him, we're giving counsel to you.
Yep.
Once he issues his decision, then it's out of his hands.
Yeah. Reasonable minds can differ. I've heard that once. All right, John, I feel comfortable with the resolution and the direction we're going here. John, do you want me to read the resolution, and then we can have a vote on it?
Well, I think that, I don't think there's a need to read it through again. I think I've covered in my description of the resolution. It's not
Okay.
very long, it's just a page and a half. I
Okay.
think I've covered the substance, so if you want to just read the action items,
ABC?
A, B, C,
Okay.
I think that would be sufficient.
All right. All right, this is a resolution in the case of David Leary, and it's case number 949. And I'm just going to read the action items, and it goes as follows. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town of Rhinebeck ZBA as follows. A, pursuant to the power and authority vested in this board by Section 125-124A of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law, and for the reasons set forth by our counsel in the attached memorandum, which is made part of this resolution, we reverse that portion of the May 17, 2017 determination of the ZEO that David Leary is required to obtain a variance from this board for a proposed attached garage before a building permit can be granted to him. Paragraph B. Further, pursuant to the power and authority vested in this board by Section 125-124A of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law, we direct the ZEO to process Mr. Leary's building permit application forthwith without requiring him to obtain a variance. And C, we direct the Secretary to the Board to, 1, refund to the applicant any fees paid by the applicant in connection with this application, 2, file a copy of this resolution with the town clerk, and 3, provide a copy of this resolution to the ZEO and to David Leary as soon as practicable. Comments, concerns? No.
I'm in agreement, and
Okay. Chris, can you poll the board?
yes.
Yes. Actually, it's a public hearing.
Yes.
And we have, a little belatedly, I apologize, the McClinchy case. And so if you could come on up. Is there anybody here for the McClinchy matter? Anyone? Okay. If you could just go through briefly what your application is. We remember it, but for the purposes of the record, if you could just explain what you want to do.
The application was for 2 variances, one for the frontage. Actually, both were for frontage on the front of our house and the side of our house, because it lies on a corner and has a driveway or a road in the front and on the side. So the distance from the building to the road was not, I believe, what was it, 50?
Yeah, less than 50 feet.
Was less than 50
Right.
feet.
And I know you submitted a pretty detailed application, and we did have the issue, which John addressed, and I'll have John speak to it, as to whether, there was a unique wrinkle in this case, in that
The roads were private.
the roads are private. I'm not
Yes.
sure we've ever had that situation, and we wanted to research to see whether you needed a variance because the roadways were private, and John or Kim, if you could explain for the record why the variances are still
Sure,
required.
you want to explain, Kim?
Sure. So we did look into if it mattered if the roads were private or if they were public town roads. And the way that the zoning law is written is that the setback is measured from the property line. It doesn't even measure from the road.
Okay.
We also looked at some case laws just to see if it mattered if it was a private road. And there have been some cases that dealt with private road variances, and it's treated the same way as if it were a town road.
Okay.
All right, so it was researched, because we didn't want to do something that
Wasn't
didn't need,
required.
wasn't required, but apparently based upon the case law,
is.
it is required, so that's why we're here. Right, it's a very straightforward application. Basically, the addition you're putting on is to your house for a master bedroom kind of thing, and I saw that you
Correct.
submitted drawings,
Yeah.
the rest of
I
it.
submitted the architectural drawings
Right.
on the,
And as I
Right.
saw from the renderings, it looks like in order to accomplish what you want to do, this is really the only area to
It is the
to
only
place it.
area that we could
Yes.
place it, yes.
because I got my downstairs door in the back, my septic in front of my house is my well, and to my left is my neighbor.
Okay,
There's no other option I have.
all right. It's pretty straightforward to me. Does any of the board members have any comments, concerns, questions?
I see the rendering, I just didn't see a property boundaries map. Is that, oh, I see.
Okay,
Okay.
and here's the private roads.
Half acre lot, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the interesting wrinkle.
Yeah,
But based upon,
In an area where that lot size is quite common.
typical, right?
right, yeah, given the neighborhood and everything else.
Small lot on private roads, okay.
All right. Tim, you have anything? No? Richard? David?
Enough.
Enough, okay. Because no one has any more questions, and we're comfortable with knowing what you want to do, at this time, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, this will be on for the next meeting for a resolution. We have 62 days to do it,
Okay.
but we try to do it as fast as possible, and in this application, I'm confident we'll have the resolution done for the next meeting, which is July 19th. Can you-
Okay.
We were waiting for, Chris, has there been any response to the referrals?
No, nothing from Rhinebeck or, I
Yeah.
believe it's WAC.
Their time will run by the time, the 19th.
Right.
Because they have 30
Or
days.
Chris will circulate the responses by email.
Yeah.
I
Right.
would be quite surprised if, any of the responses were, had any kind of negative comment.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they really had any concern of any sort. But again, by the time the 19th rolls around, their 30 days for comment will have run.
Okay.
So we can render a resolution.
Okay. That's
So
it.
that's it. You don't have to be here on the 19th. You can
Okay.
if you want,
Yeah.
Okay.
but we'll take care of it on the 19th. And Tim, do you want to take a stab at this, or I can do it? It doesn't make any difference.
I'd rather hold off a little bit.
Okay, I'll write up the resolution. What I will probably do is probably call you, because I like to do a site visit. Other board members may do the same thing.
Okay.
But I want to get the lay of the land, so to speak.
Okay.
Before I write up the resolution. So I assume on your application, there's a good phone number?
It should be.
Yeah.
Let me just
Quick
see.
question, is this sewer water or a septic well?
Septic. And a well.
Okay, those I didn't see depicted. And I'm just curious, of course, because if you're,
Sure.
you're building out. So
Do you want to come up and
hope
maybe
it's not
point
too
out?
late to ask, yeah.
No, no, you can,
Here's the,
do you want to mark if you want?
this is the side road, so my well is in front of the house. I'm looking at this way.
So maybe you can just put a circle with a W.
You can utilize it better than mine.
'Cause I see you have a stream back here, so the septic's
Yeah,
not going to be
so
too
some-
close to that.
Yeah, it's not,
The septic's here, and the well is over here.
okay, so you just put well and just put septic and,
Okay, so your field is probably going to be
I feel it's, yeah, back
kind of
here.
like this, right?
Yeah, and here's the dish here. These fields back here, and then the stream runs there. It's not even a stream, it's runoff
The
water.
wet area.
But yeah, it's considered, this range.
well,
It's dry.
yeah, it just, during, when it rains, it.
Yeah, very little, and it dries up in within 10 minutes, and it's gone.
I wonder if it's too much to ask for that to be added here so that we're not approving a construction from where, right? It would be nice for us to see on a map where well and septic is, so we're not approving a construction that might interfere with it.
I mean, if the concerns you,
Well-
we can have you generally mark out, and you just put a stake or
I
something
can
like
stake, I
that.
can stake where my well and my septic is, absolutely, come on.
And then,
Okay, so
and then
just-
stake where the addition is. You are held to building in conformity with these plans, so,
Yeah, sure.
Right. I'm just looking for a paper trail, so
But I
So it
understand
shows that we
the sense
asked and you-
When you come out with the site visit, I'll make sure I'll stake my well and I'll stake my septic and form out where the addition is gonna be. The four corners of it, so everybody's on the same page.
yeah. Now, the number that is on the application, 876-1793, is that okay? Is that the best way to get a hold of you guys? Okay.
Sure.
All right, so you'll be hearing from us. We'll come out and take a look. At least I will, since I'll be writing it. Maybe others, and we'll take care of it on the 19th. All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
All right, next is a matter that I am recused from. That's the Ever Ready Diner application. And Richard, would you be so kind as to take over for me?
Yes.
And I will get out of here.
All right. This is a continuation of public hearing on the Ever-Ready Rebuild Diner, reconstruction of 7,000 square foot fire damaged restaurant. There was a proposed minor subdivision which will consolidate 5 parcels into one, resulting in the requirement for 2 variances before the ZBA, front yard setback, and maximum building coverage allowed is 10%.
Good evening, Brian Watts from MA Day Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant. The applicant, as said, is looking to rebuild this restaurant, with the exception of the banquet room in the back. If we recall, this area in the back will not be rebuilt. If you've ever been in the restaurant, there was that, they're not looking to, I think it was underutilized, they're not looking to rebuild that. The application is currently before the planning board. In that process, we had to come get the area variances, subdivision, and Village of Rhinebeck approvals. They were obtained, and in the process of trying to finalize the subdivision, that approval expired, trying to get that up to date. The ZBA approval expired, then the village expired, and we've gone back through all.
Right.
The village and the subdivision received those approvals. The subdivision has been filed. The deeds, consolidated deeds have been
So the
filed.
subdivision map has been filed with the
Correct.
Dutchess County Clerk.
Correct.
Okay. And then is there a new tax map parcel number?
I don't have that. I believe that was supposed to be issued. I'm not
Okay.
aware if it has been yet.
And then SEQA, there was a question. I think the planning board was the lead agency.
Yeah, let me,
Correct.
Richard, let me bring you up to date on what happened. So at the last meeting, the seeker question controls the timeline for us. And that was the reason it was a concern, because other agency, we're not supposed to be granting approvals typically until seeker's been completed. However, we Kim and I did some research, and it's our opinion that this application can be treated in the same way that we treated the Phantom Gardner and the Williams applications, which came before us. Standing alone, these variances can be classified as type 2 action for seeker purposes. And that will allow this board, the sections would be 617.5C2 and 617.5C13. And with, if the board decides to adopt a motion classifying it in that regard this evening, then the constraints on this board moving forward with an approval are, the time constraints are lifted, and we can just, you can proceed to deliberate on this application and issue a decision.
All right, then before getting into the septic question on that, I'll make a motion to accept the determination by this board that it's a type 2 under 617.5C2 and 617.5C13. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye, okay. So that resolution passes. And then I think the last area is the Dutchess County Board of Health. They were on site, I think you indicated last time. Go ahead.
They have been on site. We have been on site as well. They've inspected the septic systems located here, and they are meeting all of their criteria. They have no issue with the current systems. They're in good shape. They've been rehabilitated. Tanks have been emptied, cleaned.
Do you know if they're issuing anything in writing, or?
They will be. It's pending an approval of the water supply, because this is a public water supply.
Right.
They have no further issue with any of the septic designs. We're just waiting on water sampling results.
The water was sent in, the test?
It was, I believe it was sent in a little last year, actually, and it came back with a hit on turbidity. They've gone and they're attempting to have it resampled, and I believe Mr. Tom LeGrand is in that process right now, and we're waiting on word from him. He is obtaining the samples and having them tested. Once we receive those results, clean results, we will be submitting back to the Board of Health, and they have said that once they receive those, they will be issuing a letter of...
And what's your best estimate as to whether that would be done by the July 19th meeting of the ZBA? You know?
Truthfully, I have...
Okay.
I'm not familiar with where he is with testing that.
We can do it two ways. We could make it subject to that, or just keep the public meeting open. I hate to... But we would need that.
Yeah, you're right, Richard, that it can be done two ways. You can attach conditions to the grant of the variances, that documentation be provided within a certain number of days. And if we were to say 60 days or something, we can talk to you about what the time estimate would be, but...
Yeah, I haven't been involved with that aspect of the project, so
Okay.
I'm not sure
All right, well then...
what the actual
We
time
may
frame
very well go ahead with
is.
a resolution on the July 19th meeting, but between now and then, if you could look into it, and then we'll ask you 30 days from now where we are, and then we can make that
Well,
part of it.
I'd like to give us a little more lead time.
Okay.
If you can talk to whoever you need to talk to find out, and then email the Chris Hedges, who's the board secretary,
Yes.
with that information.
Good.
Chris will circulate that to the board, and then we're not guessing going into the
Yes.
meeting on the 19th.
Excellent.
All right, so why don't we, tonight, leave the public hearing open,
Right.
just to keep the option open. The plan will be to take action on the 19th. So on the 19th of July, we can close the if all goes well, we can close the public hearing and you can take action on the same evening. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay. And if for some reason there's a problem, the public hearing is left open, our clock hasn't
Yeah.
started, and,
Okay.
okay?
Richard, who's assigned this one?
I am.
No, okay. That's right, we just did that.
Okay?
If
So
that's,
is there clarity with regard
Yes.
to what the applicant needs to?
Yes, you're going to contact Chris, the board secretary, as to,
a time frame for getting Board of Health.
Water and Dutchess County Department of Health,
Septic.
are they going to issue a letter on the septic?
They're going to issue
You're looking for
Yes.
that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
they're going to issue a letter for both items.
Gotcha.
They don't issue it piecemeal, so to speak, like that.
Yep.
okay? And we'll leave the public hearing open, and on the 19th, we may or may not close it, and we may even have a resolution ready for that evening. Hopefully, we'll have the Dutchess County Department of Health letter. Okay.
Okay, we'll try to get that as quickly as
you.
we can. All right, thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
You are welcome.
Okay. All right, next, we have under old business this Hodgkinson Fisher matter. I wrote up a resolution. I apologize for not appearing before this evening, but hopefully you guys have had a chance to take a look at it a little bit. John and Kim, I am very open to constructive criticism, so feel free.
Just constructive?
Just constructive criticism. But anyway, I wrote it in the affirmative. I did go out to the site and poked around, and anyway, I'll read the resolution, and feel free to correct any mistakes that you see in it, and we'll take it from there. Okay?
Hit it.
All right. Resolution of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of the area variance application of Catherine Hodgkinson Fisher, ZBA case number 948. Background, paragraph 1. The applicant appellant is Catherine Hodgkinson Fisher, hereunto referred to as applicant. This appeal is from the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Administrator's denial letter of April 18th, 2017. Property involved, and here I'd like you folks to take particular scrutiny. The appeal involves a property located at 595 South Mill Road in the Town of Rhinebeck, and which bears a tax parcel that's set forth. Now, looking at the notes, I know that it looks like it's going to be in total 27 acres when all is said and done, but it was my understanding, and from my notes, and I correct it if I'm wrong, that the house is actually situated on 5 acres?
Currently, prior to moving the lot line.
Right, okay.
Close to that, yeah.
So, all right, so I was accurate on that. All right, so that's the way this thing reads. The applicant's property is 5 acres, but pursuant to a proposed lot line revision, the size of the pre-existing non-conforming property will be in compliance with RA10 zone, which has a 10-acre minimum lot size, but that has yet to occur.
Correct.
All right. The proposed lot line revision is set forth in the plans submitted by Synergy Design dated March 27th, 2017, which are part of the submitted application. The property is located within the Hudson River Historic District and is in a RA10 zone. Next, representation. The applicant is represented by Synergy Design Architecture and Engineering LLC through Jordan Valdina, principal. The description of the proposed project. The applicant proposes to convert an existing garage to a principal dwelling with minor addition to the existing footprint. The structure is currently unoccupied. Number of area variances required. There are 2, both involving setback reductions. The first area variance, the applicant seeks a variance from section 125-19 and 125-21 relative to a front yard setback. A 150-yard setback is required in the RA10 zone. The existing structure is approximately 70 feet from the front property line, requiring an approximate 80-foot front yard area variance. In addition, the applicant seeks a side yard setback variance pursuant to Section 12519 and 12521. A 100-yard side yard setback is required in the RA10 zone, and the existing structure is approximately 70 feet from the side property line, requiring an approximate 30-foot side yard variance. Paragraph 2, ZBA review. Now, this is going to be a little funny because the denial letter came later. I know you were denied first, and then the letter came second, but anyway. Timeliness of the appeal. The applicant filed an appeal with this board on March 27, 2017, and has paid the requisite fee. The appeal was filed within 60 days of the date of the ZEO's decision appealed from, and thus the application is timely as required by 125-125B of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. So it's a little odd that you applied for a review on March 27th when the denial letter wasn't delivered until the 18th of April, but obviously you knew that variances were required, so
Right.
That's why it's unusual. On April 19th, 2017, the board deemed the application to be complete and accepted it. Seeker, after accepting this appeal, it was noted that the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board accepted lead agency status, which was confirmed by an email dated May 18th, 2017. The Planning Board classified this as a Type 2 action and cited sections 617 5C12 and 617 5C13. There were 3 referrals and 3 responses. First, Dutchess County Planning. It was determined that the application was required to be referred to Dutchess County Planning. Ultimately, the application was referred to the county on April 20th, and they responded on April 25th that the application was exempt from 239 review. The Town of Rhinebeck Waterfront Advisory Committee was also consulted, as was the CAB. The application was referred to the Town of Rhinebeck CAB and WAC. The CAB and the WAC found no issue with the requested variances and found no impact to the town's LWRP policies because the property is located in the town's LWRA/LWRP district, and that's language straight from the letter from them. There's also a referral made to the Planning Board. The application was referred to the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, and on April 17th, by memorandum from that board, the Planning Board found that the proposed use and the requested area variances raised no significant planning or environmental issues. Site visit. On June 15th, 2017, I went out to the site and viewed the surrounding properties and observed firsthand the site conditions, the property characteristics, the setting, the surroundings in general, the character of the neighborhood, etc. Public hearing. A public hearing on this appeal was advertised and held at the Town Hall on May 17th, 2017. During the course of the public hearing, no comments were received by the board. The public hearing was closed on May 17th. Okay, paragraph 13, consideration of the 5 factors in balancing test. In our review of the variances sought, we considered the 5 factors required by Section 125-124C1 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law as follows. Sub A. If the variances are granted, will they cause an undesirable change? Will they cause an undesirable change? That should be
No B.
no B. In the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties? We feel the answer to this question is no. The property is currently unoccupied and is in disrepair. The renewed use and improvement of the property and the structure will enhance the character of the neighborhood and nearby properties. And
I just have one suggestion on that.
Okay.
I'd like to substitute determine instead of feel.
where are you?
A, second paragraph.
Oh, yes. So we determine,
Yes.
right. And did anybody get a chance to get out there?
I did.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building, but it's in disrepair. It's going to be lovely when it's done, and I think clearly by putting it back into use and repairing it, it's going to enhance the neighborhood quite a bit. So anyway, B, Can the benefits sought by the appellant be achieved by some method feasible for the appellant to pursue other than an area variance? We find that the answer is no. The structure is currently in place. You can't move it. While there may be some minor increase in size of the existing structure, it's basically the same footprint. The applicant only wishes to rehab the existing structure for residential use, and again, moving the structure is not an option. C, is the requested area variance substantial? We find the answer to this question is no. Again, the structure currently exists and has existed for some time. The proposed increase in footprint is minimal. D, will the proposed variances have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? We find the answer to this is no. Again, the property is in disuse and disrepair, and the applicant's proposal will improve the appearance of the property and the structure and will benefit the neighborhood. And it's clear that what the applicant wants to do is going to greatly, in my opinion, improve that area, that side of the street in particular. It's a beautiful building, and it just needs a little tender loving care to bring it back to its former grandeur. So anyway, is the alleged difficulty self-created? And I put a no for that because the structure has been in place for many years and predates the zoning code of 2009. I don't know how old the structure is, but it looks pretty old, and it certainly was built before 2009.
Yep.
14, result of the balancing test. Based on our analysis of the 5 factors discussed above, we find that the balancing test favors granting of the area variances sought. Now, therefore, be it resolved, based on all the facts described above and upon the reasoning described above as follows. Section 1, the ZBA hereby grants the variance from zoning law section 12519 and 12521. Specifically, the ZBA grants a front yard setback from 150 feet to 70 feet as outlined in the application. The ZBA also grants the side yard setback from 100 feet to 70 feet as set forth in the application. Section 2, the granting of these variances does not absolve the applicant, it should be the applicant, not application, from having to secure any and all required permits and/or approvals. And 3, the area variances shall be null and void unless the proposed construction is commenced within 1 year from the date of this resolution. Comments, questions, concerns?
I have a minor typo.
Okay.
In paragraph A, 13A, neighborhood instead of neighbor, in the last line. The structure will enhance the character of the neighborhood.
Character of the neighborhood, right?
Okay.
Instead of the neighbor. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I have one.
Okay.
I would suggest adding, changing sections 2 and 3 to be 3 and 4, and to add the following as a new section 2.
Okay.
The variances shall be expressly conditioned upon approval by the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board of the lot line revision described in paragraph 2 above. The applicant shall file with the ZBA a copy of the Planning Board resolution approving the lot line revision.
Okay, I think that makes sense. I made reference to what was supposed to happen, but I think having it conditioned is good. And Chris, well, John, you'll talk to Chris about...
I have it written down for you. I'll give it to you after the meeting.
All right. I think that's a good addition. You?
Quick comment.
Okay.
B, last line in B, in the larger paragraph. Moving the structure is not an option. I think anything's an option given enough money, but if we say moving the structure is not a feasible option.
You're a practical option.
Okay.
Practical. And I don't know if you care to put down that I visited. Does that help?
Yes,
if
sure,
we
absolutely.
Say that a second board member visited?
The more, the merrier. Okay, I
Okay.
visited on June 15th.
And I visited on June 18th.
So, Chris, if you could just add something to paragraph 11 saying that I visited on, well, I'm there on the 15th, and that Dave visited on June 18th. No, absolutely. The more, I think it's important.
Eyes on it, the
Yeah,
better, right?
absolutely.
June 18th?
Yeah.
June 18th.
I just have one other comment, and that is that I think this is a really good resolution. This is what we're kind of shooting to do. So
Okay.
thanks, shows a lot of hard work.
It's nice when you have a good form from good counsel. Anyway. All right, any other questions, concerns, comments? No? Okay. At this time, I would move that we adopt the resolution as read with corrections and additions. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? Oh, let me withdraw that. Chris, can you poll the board?
Yes. Tim Ellenbrook,
Yes.
Richard Martin.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Passed.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for all your information and your participation.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing it when it's done.
Likewise.
All right, that's, let's see, do we have anything else on the,
No. Oh, the, John's,
yeah, John, do you
Yeah,
want to
I'm
talk
gonna
about?
I'm going to talk to you quickly about two things. That I will shoot for us to be on our way by 9 o'clock. Let me just make one note here.
Okay. John, do you want to keep this on the record? Is it something that
Yeah,
the public?
this
Okay,
can
good.
definitely be on the record.
All right.
It's board business. Okay. So, the board secretary raised a pretty terrific idea in between today and the last meeting. And Chris took it upon herself to take a look at, you may notice that the area variance application that we've been using looks pretty ancient. It looks like it's probably been photocopied a zillion times. And Chris said, you know, she wanted to start spiffing it up and do a new application, and we ended up having a meeting at Town Hall to talk about the application. And thanks to Chris raising the issue, it really gave Kim and I a chance to focus on the application, and we really realized it's really not very good at all, and it's not nearly as useful as it can be for the board, and it's pretty cryptic for applicants. So we spent some time talking about it. We spent some time with Chris to find out the kinds of issues and problems that people who are applicants have when they come to see her, because one of the other things we'd like to do is to reduce the amount of time that Chris has to spend answering questions from people. And if we can do that in another way, that just streamlines it, lets her spend her time doing other things. We also discovered at the time, as you alluded to in the last application, that right now the denial letters are not coming out as promptly as we'd like them to have, and people are applying for their variances without having a denial letter in hand. In our opinion, what that's resulting, it's harming the quality of the applications that are ending up on your desks, because it's already kind of an abstract to people to be applying for an area variance, and then they don't have a denial letter to use as a framework for making the application. We'll be meeting with Ron. We need to get that situation turned around because the law requires that the denial letter be issued first. That's the action by the zoning enforcement officer that kicks off the clock for applicants to make their variance application. And we think that it'll be quite helpful to applicants to have that denial letter in hand. So we're working on that. We're just letting you know what we're doing. The other thing that we're going to be working on in connection with that is I think we're probably going to burn down the area variance application completely and start over. And we're going to work with Chris on that. And we want to accomplish three things simultaneously with the revised application, which you will get to see before we decide to implement it.
What's on the table is the kind of the first draft of the,
No, that's the escrow agreement we're going to talk
well, no,
about.
I see an application for area variance as well.
Yeah, Chris is showing you the start. Yep.
Okay.
So we want to do three things with the new form. One is, we want to write the application form in a way that provides some explanation to people so that they have in plain English, so that they have a better understanding of what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it. The second thing we want to do, and we think that with more explanation, people who are applying for variances are going to have a better understanding of what they're doing. They're not going to have to ask as many questions from Chris. We're going to provide more explanation on the application form for the benefit of applicants. The second thing we want to do is that we want to change the form so that it better reflects what the modern test is for area variances. And so that's really just a matter of bringing the form into sync with the law as it is today. And the third thing that we want to do is we want to use this form to start putting applicants in a position to provide you as board members with better information. Right now, you end up having to write these resolutions and to fill in the elements of that test. And in most applications, you're getting next to nothing from the applicants, a little jotted line. We would like to emphasize in the new form to applicants the importance of the elements of the test and asking them to really provide a narrative with regard to each one of them. We noticed that on some other forms, with the seeker form, you're getting more narrative about the project than we are on the variance application form because the form is asking for that. So we think that we can have the applicants do more of the lifting for this board by encouraging them to put in an application that's closer to what you guys get from professionals. And that way, when the time comes for you to do the resolution, more of the work is done in terms of establishing what the test elements are. So we're hoping that our new form is going to accomplish all of those things. And as Chris already has it started, and we're going to be working with her as we go forward to put something together that is going to be a lot more customer friendly, and also hopefully makes life easier for the board members as well. Okay?
Great.
So that's number one. And number two is we have been talking about going forward, and you have the authority to, did I hand those escrow agreements?
Yeah,
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yep.
So you have the authority already to require applicants to the board to post escrow deposits to defray the cost of your using consultants to help you review. It has not been the tradition of this board to do that, even though you have that authority, and lots of other ZBAs do it. You're allowed to do it in instances when the application that's before you stands to yield an economic benefit for the applicant. They're going to improve their property in a way that's going to throw off an economic benefit to them. And that, honestly speaking, that's almost all areas.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's universal, it always
Almost all
improves.
area variances. So what we would like to do from this point forward is that we've been working with Chris, and we're also working with Donna and Shelley, that the policy going forward, hopefully after this meeting, I'm going to ask you guys to vote on it, is to have an initial escrow deposit for every area variance application of $300. That will cover 2 hours, automatically cover 2 hours of Grant and Lyons time. We think that is going to be close to covering what it takes for us to take a look at the application, to put together this grid for you guys, which we're also going to try to send out to you in advance of future meetings, and to do the minimum or basic work that we do on an application that doesn't require, anything special. The initial deposit for use variances is going to be $500, and you haven't gotten any use variances, thank goodness, and you're probably going to need more than $500 worth of help if you get a use variance application, but you do have the authority to ask for additional escrow deposits as an application goes forward. So tonight, we want to ask you to adopt that policy so that Chris can go forward. And then we drafted an escrow agreement. So when applicants do this before a board, they enter into a contract with the ZBA by which they agree to post the escrow deposit as part of their application. They agree that you guys can ask for more funds if you need them as the application goes along. And they also agree that if they're asked for money and they don't post it, that you can suspend or delay the processing of their application. We took...
Is this separate from the application fee?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
The fee
is. So,
non-refundable.
that's right. So the fee, Tim, goes to, those funds are directed to reimbursing the town for its overhead in processing the application, the cost of Chris and copies and things like that. The escrow is used when you guys as a board are using help outside of town hall to help you process. Sometimes
John,
it's
why are we using the word escrow?
because the deposit comes into the town and it's put into the town's escrow account and held there,
Oh,
and
they
then
have an escrow account.
and then gets paid when we submit our
Fine.
bills.
Good.
Okay, and of course, unused balances are returned to the applicant at the end. So in order to, we ask applicants to sign a contract. Applicants who come before the planning board sign an escrow agreement with the planning board along these very same lines. This is something that the planning board's been doing for more than 20 years. We took a look at that escrow agreement. Tim and I thought that it could be made more customer friendly, written in a way, again, to explain why it's being done so that people have a more ready understanding of what the arrangement is. And so we've redrafted the escrow agreement and made it more customer friendly, and that's the draft agreement that you have in front of you. It covers all the legal bases, but it's written in a way that's more accessible than the old agreement, which the old agreement is also another one that's not as ancient as the variance application, but it's been around for a long time.
John,
Just needed refreshing.
do the vast majority of other ZBAs have this kind of agreement?
Yeah. Yep.
So we're in the minority by not having it.
Well, you're in the minority by not charging for, at all, not, right now, the town is paying Grant and Lyons to help you.
Right.
And we want to shift that to the applicants to the largest extent possible that we can. And that's something that's conventional in other municipalities.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's
Yeah.
conventional, other,
Yeah, we're in the minority by not doing that.
All right. And the money amounts are in line with what other jurisdictions ask for.
Well, actually, what the law requires is that the money amounts that are set have to have a correlation to what your actual experience is in. So that's one of the reasons that it's taken us a little while to do this, even though it's cost the town a little bit more money. We needed to have a base of experience. So over the last months that we've been doing this for you, Kim and I have gotten a pretty good idea, and so we think that the 2 hours is based on,
Julie, I just want to interject real quick. If you do look at that escrow agreement that we drafted, you'll notice that for area variance, it says $300. That's about 2 hours of work for us to review and to, take a look at the application. The use variance, the initial escrow deposit is stated at $500. That's actually based off the town's fee schedule for an escrow deposit. But we think that's a fair assessment because use variance are inherently more difficult to review than area variance. And as John mentioned earlier, it might actually require a little bit more. But just so that you understand where those numbers came from, they weren't just picked out of a hat. One came from the town's fee schedule, one came from just our experience.
Okay.
John and Kim, can you think of any exceptions where an applicant might not need to do this?
yes. So if somebody is coming in before you, let's say on an interpretation, I just found out that my neighbor got a building permit to put a fence, certain fence up. And I, as a neighbor, found out about this. I think the building inspector made a mistake. I bring an appeal to the zoning board of appeals to overturn the decision of the building inspector. In that instance, where a person's coming to you to enforce their rights under the zoning law, then what the courts say is you're acting like a court. You can't be charging people for trying to enforce their rights. There are certain things that just come with the responsibility of being a government, and that's one of them.
I'm for proceeding with this tonight, but that's just me. Okay.
Yeah, no, I am too, and I just wanted to make sure that, this is the norm, that, the amount is reasonable, that most ZBAs do this and all that kind of stuff. From my perspective, being on the ZBA for a long time without counsel, I'm just very happy that we do have counsel, and, it's been enormously helpful for us to have counsel, especially on, some of the trickier applications where we didn't have that in the past. And
And also just for the amount of work, helping you get done between Chris and us, handle the volume of work that you have. And you had said to me at the beginning of the process when you were talking, you were looking at the assistance that the planning board gets from Art.
Right.
And how helpful that is to the planning board. And just so that you understand, the arrangement is the same. Art's, the fees that Art charges are all passed through to the applicants in those cases using the town's escrow account.
Right.
So I'd like to ask that you consider a motion tonight to adopt this policy of requiring an initial escrow deposit and the use of this escrow agreement subject to any final corrections or changes. And this is something that doesn't have to be set in stone after today. It can be changed at any time in the future if we find something that needs to be improved.
Yeah, I'm willing to make that motion that we adopt the escrow arrangement as outlined by John, and also adopt the use of the agreement with the applicant in generally the form that's been presented to us this evening. Do I have a second?
Scott, I'm sorry, before we do that, I have some proposed changes. Do you want to do those or amend them after? What's your preference?
During the discussion, why don't you can bring them up now. And Chris, I didn't know whether you have anything to add to this, but you can add that during the discussion portion of this as well.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Okay, what do you got?
So a couple of changes. So just some suggestions. So ZBA and board are used several times in the same sentence and paragraph, and just thought, pick one or the other.
Yep.
At the end of paragraph 2, I wonder if it would be useful to us to say, should be borne by the person who applies to the board for a variance, the applicant, rather than the taxpayer. Just because we want to justify, we're now asking people to pay, it might help to justify, and that would help, I think. On paragraph 6, I'm suggesting striking the first sentence, so it would start, if your application presents, because we already stated that first sentence in the paragraph, actually I think 2 paragraphs prior to it. In paragraph 7, about halfway down, there's a sentence, if you do not make these deposit. I think it might be more.
I think deposit has to have an S at the end of it.
Right, but I'm actually going to suggest that we go back a line. It is your obligation to submit the additional deposits, or the board is authorized to delay. So I'm suggesting we strike, if you do not make those deposit.
Okay.
Because, again, just to make it read easier. Paragraph 8, strike the first comma. B, at the end, for my application to be deemed complete. proposing that we'd strike C altogether, because it really is captured elsewhere.
Well, I would disagree with that one, because here, they're specifically agreeing to the idea that they may need to deposit additional funds. I would just say that if I were ever in the position of trying to enforce this agreement, I would like to have that provision in.
But if you look at E, I understand and agree that if an additional escrow deposit is required, and I do not make the deposit, anyway.
Okay,
I'll leave
we'll
it.
consider maybe trying to combine
them two?
C and E.
Okay.
All right.
All right, in F, I understand that any unused balance from the escrow deposit, and then parentheses, the S, so deposit parenthetical S. I wonder if in G, we might strike, in the second line, shall both, and then strike have to. So, who owns the land shall both sign this agreement and be jointly and severally liable.
Okay.
Just to make it read a little easier. And then finally, on the last page, the acknowledgement, I just wonder if you want to duplicate the by date, amount received, and check number, so you have room for a secondary payment. Right, so you have an initial payment, and then you have reimbursement, but you don't have follow-up secondary payment here.
Okay.
So, that's it.
John, do you have any quarrel with any of the, well, I know you do C and D.
Yeah, I'll think, not with
Or
most
C and-
of it. We'll take a look and we'll circulate a revised version.
Yeah, and I guess it should be A, B, C, and there should be a D instead of just going from C to E.
Yeah, that would be nice too, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Whoopsie doodles. All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Subject to those changes?
Subject to the, one or more of those changes, again, I make the motion that we adopt the escrow procedure as outlined by John, and also adopt the escrow agreement, subject to, the suggested changes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Good, we'll move forward.
Nice
As
job.
I said, we'll make most of, the only, I think I can actually do what Dave wants to do with C and E by combining.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Didn't make it quite
Chris?
close.
That was mine.
No? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. All right, we're done.